When the original Nioh hit the scene back in 2017, it emerged as the very best Souls-like outside of From Software itself, with exemplary combat, thrilling bosses, and absurdly deep mechanics. Nioh 2 improved upon just about every aspect 3 years later, but didn't change a whole lot overall, essentially making it Nioh 1, but better. Nioh 3, on the other hand, is far more than just an iterative sequel. This is a total transformation of the formula, one that trades out static overworld maps for enormous open fields covering multiple different eras of Japanese history. This shift, plus the addition of an entirely new ninja stance that changes the rules of Nioh's combat, and a litany of smaller quality of life adjustments, all amount to the most significant shakeup the series has seen up to this point, and one of the best Souls-likes to date. To get the bad out of the way first, one area that has not seen any sort of significant shakeup is the storytelling. And that's a shame because it has always been one of the weakest elements of the series. Like previous Nioh games, the story serves mostly as a means to guide you through a fictionalized retelling of significant battles and wars in Japanese history, one in which monstrous yokai, magical stones with corrupting influence, and guardian spirits are commonplace. You play as Takechiyo, the grandson of Ieyasu Tokugawa, and heir to the seat of Shogun, who must travel back in time to obtain a means of defeating an ancient evil that has corrupted the present. The biggest issue with Nioh 3's story is that it's very dry and, to be frank, just kind of boring. Someone with a better knowledge of Japanese history may get more out of it thanks to knowing the context and significance of these historical figures and events, but for a layman like me, there's just not enough work done to make you care about what's going on in each of the eras that Nioh 3 took me to. Fortunately, cutscenes are short, the choreography is great, and these story shortfalls never got in the way of the action elements that otherwise make Nioh 3 one of the best Souls-likes around. I'll say this right out of the gate. Nioh 3 has the best combat of any Souls-like, past or present. End of story. It nails the look and feel of its weapons, the variety within those weapons, the depth of its mechanics, the challenging and aggressive enemy AI, the multitude of different approaches you can take in any given combat encounter, and the list just goes on and on. It's all best-in-class quality at every level. Nearly all of that was true for Nioh 2 as well, but what elevates Nioh 3 even further into the stratosphere is the split between the different combat modes, Samurai and Ninja. Samurai mode is the traditional Nioh combat experience, characterized by careful resource management through the usage of stamina restoring key pulses, the need to switch between low, medium, and high stances depending on the given encounter, and a careful balance of defensive techniques and offensive rushdown. Ninja mode, on the other hand, is a brand new style of Nioh combat that switches out the aforementioned key pulses and stance switching, replacing them with much faster attacks that require far less stamina, allowing me to basically suffocate enemies with strikes without even giving them a chance to fight back. In addition, Ninja mode also gives you access to 3 ninjutsu attacks, like shuriken, traps, and magical spells, which refill as you land attacks and are great for targeting enemy weaknesses or hitting annoying flying enemies. The 2 modes can be swapped freely on the fly, and they even have their own equipment sets, letting you essentially build 2 different characters with different combat focuses and styles. Team Ninja smartly avoids falling into the trap of forcing you to use one stance over another in order to defeat a certain type of boss or enemy, which often stymies creative combat expression in other games. Instead, both stances are always viable, and the choice of whether one is better than the other for a particular type of encounter is always left up to your discretion and playstyle. It was always a great feeling to return to a boss that I previously died against and adjust my strategy by either using more or less on one of the modes. For example, in a fight against a boss with powerful but predictable attacks, I might stick to Samurai stance so that I can parry their attacks and have more stamina left over to counterattack. But in a fight against a faster and more erratic boss, I might focus on Ninja stance instead and use my quick-step missed ability to maneuver around to their more vulnerable backside and avoid having to block altogether. While I have a clear preference for the flexibility and speed of the Ninja stance, developer Team Ninja has done a great job of balancing the 2 stances to make them both worth swapping between regularly. Samurai mode feels a little bit weaker at a base level, but is balanced by being much better defensively. It also has an additional mechanic called Arts Proficiency that rewards you with a powered up special or heavy attack if you're able to fill a meter by landing attacks and successfully blocking without taking hits. Meanwhile, Ninja Mode feels like Team Ninja finally taking off whatever limiters they may have placed on the combat in previous games in the service of balancing stamina management, lifting up their hands and saying, you know what, just go wild. Perhaps the biggest departure from previous Nioh games is the shift from a mission structure to a series of open worlds. Over the course of Nioh 3's 40+ hour campaign, you'll be traveling around from the Edo period, to the Heian era, to the Bakumatsu era, and even to antiquity. Every period that you travel to comes with its own enormous battlefield to explore, with tons of points of interest all over the map, featuring optional bosses, challenging combat encounters, and worthwhile rewards. That last bit is important because one of the few complaints I've historically had about the Nioh series has been a lack of satisfying rewards due to the random nature of loot drops. The loot is still mostly random in Nioh 3, but there are now other meaningful rewards for you to seek out. Clearing out lesser crucibles will power up your guardian spirits, granting you access to new spirit skills, defeating masters will unlock new nodes on specific weapon skill trees, finding Jizo statues will allow you to select from a variety of bonuses that will aid you when you're inside a crucible, sniping the weasel-like Chijinko demons out of the sky will get you elemental variations of techniques in your skill tree, you'll find equipable skills in the many chests strewn all throughout the world, and all of this on top of the already existing Kodama and Scampus collectibles that existed in past Nioh games. Doing these open world activities also adds to an area exploration rating, which itself comes with rewards, from stat bonuses, to skill points, to more areas of interest being pinpointed on the map. Rarely was I ever surprised while exploring any of Nioh 3's open zones, but at least I was well rewarded for my time, which counts for a lot in a game where you need every advantage you can get. But while exploration is well incentivized and the environmental design of these huge open landscapes is impressive, Nioh 3's open worlds feel like they're missing a unique identity. Part of the problem stems from the fact that you'll fight the same enemies in just about every zone. This was an issue with previous Nioh games as well, and it is felt even more so when you're wandering through visually distinct open worlds that all kind of feel the same. There are almost no enemies that feel unique to a time period. The Cyclops that appear in the Warring States era are the same ones that appear in the Icy Heian period, except instead of rocks, they throw snowballs. There is at least a fairly wide assortment of enemies to face overall, and a large number of them are completely new to the series. But it is a little disappointing that the returning enemies don't have any new tricks or attacks to keep me on my toes. Not that you'll really need anything extra to be kept on your toes. Nioh 3, like the previous two games, is very difficult, even by Souls-like standards. Enemies and bosses are relentlessly aggressive, and if you're not careful about your stamina management, you'll find yourself regularly being stunned and vulnerable to high damage grabs that will kill you in just about one hit. But that difficulty is key to why the combat of Nioh 3 is so thrilling. Besides, even though the difficulty is high, checkpoints are well placed, shortcuts are abundant, and load times are super quick, so I rarely became frustrated despite dying 290 times over the course of the campaign. Loot remains the most frustrating element of Nioh 3. The fact is, this is a loot system that exists for the benefit of New Game Plus at the detriment of a first-time playthrough. For New Game Plus and beyond, it's great. You're able to dig deep into your collection of gear, pick out useful sets, and plan builds around their powerful set bonuses, and really get into the nitty-gritty of gear customization. But until you get to that point, gear gets outdated so quickly that it just feels like a waste of time and resources to even bother with it. I've played enough of these games to know that I shouldn't sweat the loot on my first playthrough, instead just equipping the gear with the highest number and moving on, but my prayers go out to anyone tackling Nioh for the first time, because poring over the literal thousands of pieces of gear, on top of all the equipable skills, the skill tree, prestige points, guardian spirits, and soul cores that can be placed in either the yin or the yang position, it's a lot. Thankfully, there is now an auto-equip feature that allows you to easily equip the most powerful gear you own with just the press of a button. What is especially nice about it is that you can set it to automatically equip based on weight. So, for example, you could just set it to equip all the heaviest gear you have if you don't care about having a bad dodge with just a few invulnerability frames, or you can set it for a balance of good gear and a good dodge, or you could go toward the other extreme and set it to auto-equip the best gear that still lets you zip around the battlefield, even if it means leaving one or two gear slots completely empty. Auto-equipping obviously has its limitations, as it doesn't take into consideration the build-defining special effects of a weapon or set bonuses, but it does give you an option to dramatically reduce the amount of time spent playing the menu game of Nioh 3 without impacting those who enjoy the process of meticulously fine-tuning their builds at every point of the campaign. Even in a genre that has become as saturated as the Souls-like, there is still nothing that hits quite like the Nioh series, and Nioh 3 stands out as being the best of the trilogy. The move to an open world structure isn't perfect, but the rewarding exploration, gorgeous landscapes, and thrilling optional boss battles mostly cover any minor issues. Strap on top of that best-in-class combat, hugely customizable build crafting, a lengthy campaign with a deep New Game Plus mode where the loot system actually shines, and a godsend of an auto-equip feature before you get there, and you've got yet another Team Ninja banger that sits at the top of the Souls-like genre.
Reviews editor Tom Marks here with Mitchell Saltzman, our reviewer of Nioh 3, to talk a little bit more about his taste in the genre. Mitchell, I'm sure you've seen elsewhere because we've had him on to talk about Elden Ring Night Reign. You also reviewed base Elden Ring. You reviewed Nioh 2 back in the day, Ninja Gaiden 4 more recently, just everywhere. But let's talk about this one. First of all, why'd you want to, I know you reviewed Nioh 2, but why'd you want to come back for the third one? What's your favorite in the series? What do you like about the series? All that sort of stuff.
Oh man, Tom, I'm a glutton for punishment. No, I mean, the Nioh series, I think, is one of my favorite, not just Souls-likes, it's like one of my favorite action RPG series of all time. I think Team Ninja just has such a handle on combat, even in a genre where combat is a lot more methodical and, stamina driven. Team Ninja has still found a way to make the combat in Nioh feel very much like an action game. It's super fast, it's super mobile, and it's very challenging. And I've just really, I've always really loved that about the series.
What do you think distinguishes Nioh as a series from other games like this beyond that pace?
So it really is about the stamina management, I think, with that game. Because of the fact that you're able to attack so quickly in Nioh, they have this key pulse system that allows you to be aggressive, but also have a skill element to that aggression that lets you get your stamina back. If you run out of stamina in this game, it's really bad. So for me, I think that's kind of what sets the series apart. It's the careful balance of aggression, stamina management, and knowing when to be defensive and when to turn on the gas, so to speak.
So we recently talked with Michael Hyam at the end of his review of Code Vein 2, which is another Souls-like game that, previously the series was more linear and now has become more open world in the footsteps of Elden Ring. So my question to you is, generally, which one would you prefer? And not just for Nioh, but broadly in the genre, do you like this trend of games looking at Elden Ring and going, oh, we should be open as well? Or would you rather that more games just sort of stick to Lies of P and those corridors, so to speak? Not that that game is all corridors.
I think there's room for both, right? To me, when I was playing this game, it honestly made me think of Arkham Asylum versus Arkham City. Both those games are incredible, right? And they both have really good parts that only exist because of the structure of how they are designed. So when you ask me which one I prefer, I would say probably I lean a little bit towards the Lies of P Dark Souls style of having, a kind of open linear kind of structure. But when you look at Elden Ring did so many things that are just so good for the open world genre in terms of just feeling like you're in a world and going in a direction and having an interesting encounter. If you are able to make an open world game that captures that kind of experience of feeling like you're an explorer and being surprised when you go in a direction and see something on the map that kind of piques your interest, and you're rewarded for that curiosity, I think that is a very powerful feeling.
What's still on your wish list for Nioh 4 after Nioh 3, right? What do you still think this series, because obviously you love it. It's not like you're saying this is a game with tons of problems, but what would take the next one to a 10? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I really think there are people that I know love the loot system of the Nioh series. It really is a loot system that is devoted like almost entirely to the New Game Plus experience, and I think to that end, it's really good at keeping you wanting to play more. Enemies get so much stronger, so you really need to do some build crafting and make sure that you are taking all the advantages that you can from like the set bonuses and just all that other stuff, setting your skills so that you have your build just right. When you are in the end game of Nioh, it is a completely different experience. And I think the loot really, caters to that experience. But for me, as someone who doesn't have time to go that far with it, I would like to have a system that makes it a little easier to respec. You mentioned Code Vein. One of the things I love about Code Vein is the blood code system, where if you want to try a different build, a different character class, all you have to do is just equip a blood code, and then all of your stats automatically kind of form to that blood code, and then you're able to just very quickly swap out weapons, and it's just very, very flexible. I would like some flexibility in Nioh, or at least Nioh is pretty flexible, but I would like that flexibility to be a little more accessible, because there's so many cool weapons in this game, and they have so much depth to them, and it's just kind of a pain in the ass, to be honest, to respec your characters so that you can try out some of those other gameplay styles.
I love games with crunchy loot and equipment you have to manage, but I do also think that any game that has to add an auto-equip I don't want to think about this button, has some things to re-examine about itself and what it's doing. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's unfair to say.
And yet, the auto-equip button is a new thing for Nioh. It's such a godsend. Right. I can't even begin to describe how wonderful it is to just be able to, go into your inventory, press a button, and be like, okay, I'm caught up to the level curve.
I'm just saying, I think maybe that button in every game is a Band-Aid on a bigger problem.
That's fair. That's fair.
Mitchell, thank you so much for chatting with us about this a little bit deeper. If you want to see another chat with Mitchell about a different type of action game, Ninja Gaiden 4, we chatted about that one at the end of last year. And then the game we've been talking about, if you want another Souls-like that went open world and has era time traveling in it, man, you're in luck, because Code Vein 2 just came out as well. So go check out the review with a chat with Michael Hyam at the end of that one. And for everything else, keep it here on IGN.